My dad had this ex-girlfriend named Rachel, a woman whose name became synonymous with chaos in our household. A storm that refused to dissipate even after my parents had built a life together. By the time I was born, my parents were already married. Their love a quiet fortress I thought nothing could breach, but Rachel was a relentless force, always stirring up drama with my mom, her bitterness a dark cloud that loomed over our family. I was just 5 years old when this happened. A small child with no understanding of the complexities of adult relationships, blissfully unaware of the shadows that lingered in my parents' past. That day, I was sprawled on the living room floor, surrounded by my toys, plastic dinosaurs and tiny cars scattered across the carpet, my imagination weaving stories of adventure and heroism. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting warm golden patches on the walls, the house filled with the comforting hum of a normal afternoon. But then, a loud banging on the front door shattered the peace, each strike a thunderous echo that made my little heart jump in my chest. I froze, my toy car slipping from my hand, as my mom hurried to answer the door, her footsteps quick and tense. When she opened it, Rachel's voice erupted like a storm, sharp and furious, her screams slicing through the air as she accused my mom of stealing my dad, claiming he belonged to her, her words dripping with a rage I couldn't comprehend. I sat there clutching my dinosaur, my small world suddenly invaded by a fear I didn't understand. The sound of her anger, a dark melody that would echo in my memory for years. Have you ever felt the safety of childhood shatter in an instant? A stranger's rage tearing through the walls of your home like a tempest you can't escape? My mom's voice trembled as she told Rachel to leave, her tone firm but laced with an undercurrent of fear that even I, at 5 years old, could sense. But Rachel wasn't deterred. Her screams grew louder, more insistent, her words a venomous chant as she declared she wouldn't leave until my dad came out to face her, her voice echoing through the house like a siren of chaos. I sat frozen on the living room floor, my toys forgotten, my small hands clutching the plastic dinosaur as if it could protect me from the storm unfolding at our doorstep. Rachel's anger was a tangible thing, a dark force that seemed to press against the walls of our home. Her words, "He's mine, and you stole him," repeating like a mantra, each shout a dagger that pierced the fragile safety I'd always known. I didn't understand why she was so mad at my mom, why her voice sounded like it could shatter glass, but the fear in my chest was real, a heavy weight that made my breath come in shallow, shaky gasps, my little heart pounding with a terror I couldn't name. My mom, her face pale, her hands trembling, finally stepped back from the door, her voice rising as she called my dad at work, her words clipped and urgent as she relayed the situation. I heard her say, "If she doesn't leave, call the police." Her tone a mix of desperation and resolve, her eyes darting to me as she tried to shield me from the chaos. Rachel's tirade continued for what felt like an eternity. 20 minutes of relentless yelling, her voice a storm that refused to abate, each word a reminder of the danger lurking just outside our door. Then, as if her rage had reached a breaking point, I heard a loud thud followed by the sound of shattering glass, a sharp, jarring noise that cut through the air like a scream. Rachel had thrown a rock through our front window, the glass exploding inward in a cascade of glittering shards that rained down onto the carpet, each piece catching the sunlight as it fell, a cruel mockery of the warmth that had filled the room. Moments before, I burst into tears, the sound of my own cries mingling with the chaos, my small body trembling as I curled into myself, the dinosaur falling from my hands as the fear overwhelmed me. The world I'd known, the safety of my home, had been shattered along with that window, and I couldn't understand why this woman, this stranger, wanted to hurt us. Can you imagine the terror of a child, watching the sanctuary of home crumble under a stranger's rage, the sound of breaking glass a harbinger of dangers you can't comprehend. My mom rushed to me, her arms wrapping around my trembling frame. As she pulled me close, her voice soft but strained as she whispered, "It's going to be okay, sweetheart." Her words a desperate attempt to soothe the fear that had taken root in my heart. But I could feel her shaking too, her embrace a fragile shield against the chaos Rachel had unleashed, her own fear seeping through her touch as she held me tight, the shards of glass glinting on the carpet around us like a constellation of broken dreams. The warmth of her arms couldn't erase the terror of that moment, the way Rachel's screams had echoed in my ears, the way the windows shattering had felt like the world itself was breaking apart. Over the next few weeks, Rachel's presence became a dark specter in our lives, her anger a relentless storm that refused to abate, her actions growing more sinister with each passing day. She kept showing up at our house, her visits unannounced and unwelcome, her footsteps a haunting rhythm on our doorstep as she left tokens of her rage. Withered flowers, their petals brown and lifeless, and handwritten notes scrawled with threats. Like, "You'll be sorry." Their words a chilling promise of retribution that made my mom's hands tremble as she gathered them up, her face pale with a fear she tried to hide from me. Each item was a reminder of the danger that lurked just outside our door, a shadow that followed us even in the daylight, turning our home into a battleground where safety felt like a distant memory. One night, the terror escalated further, Rachel's desperation reaching a new peak as she tried to break into our house under the cover of darkness, her fingers clawing at the door as if she could tear through the wood with her bare hands. I was asleep when it happened, my small body tucked beneath the covers, but I woke to the sound of my dad's voice, sharp and commanding, as he confronted her, his footsteps heavy on the stairs as he raced to protect us. The police were called, their flashing lights a stark contrast to the quiet night, and Rachel was arrested, her screams fading into the distance as they took her away, her rage finally silenced by the weight of the law. But even that wasn't the end. Rachel's venom lingered, her accusations a final act of malice as she claimed my dad had attacked her, a lie that spread like wildfire through the whispers of the neighborhood, staining our family's name with a falsehood we couldn't easily erase. Her actions left scars on our lives, wounds that bled into the quiet moments, a reminder of the storm she'd brought into our home. What would you feel, as a child, watching your family's peace unravel under a stranger's relentless assault, each threat a shadow that darkens the safety you once knew? Rachel's arrest should have been the end of our nightmare, a final chapter to the chaos she'd brought into our lives. But her shadow lingered long after she was gone, her presence a dark echo that refused to fade. After she was taken away that night, her accusations against my dad spread like poison, her claims that he'd attacked her reaching the ears of neighbors and friends, each whispered rumor a dagger that twisted in our family's fragile peace. It wasn't true. My dad had only protected us, his voice steady as he called the police, his hands never raised in violence. But the lie took root, a stain we couldn't wash away, a reminder of how easily truth could be distorted by someone consumed by rage. Rachel was a nightmare, a storm that had raged through our lives with a ferocity that left us shaken. Her actions a dark tapestry woven with threads of fear and malice. I'm glad she's out of our lives now, her name no longer a daily terror, her footsteps no longer a haunting rhythm on our doorstep. But the scars she left behind are deep, etched into the fabric of my childhood with a precision that time can't erase. Even now, years later, I can't escape the echoes of that time. The way her rage had shattered our peace, the way her threats had turned our home into a battleground where safety felt like a distant dream. I still get nervous when I hear someone Banging on the door, the sound a trigger that sends me spiraling back to that day in the living room. My toys scattered on the carpet, the glass shattering around me as Rachel's anger tore through our lives. Each knock, each unexpected thud, brings with it a rush of fear. A memory of her voice screaming through the door. Her words a venomous chant that I can't unhear. I can still see the withered flowers on our doorstep, their petals brown and lifeless. The notes with their scrawled threats, the way my mom's hands trembled as she gathered them up. Her face pale with a fear she couldn't hide. I can still feel the weight of that night when she tried to break in. The terror of waking to my dad's voice, the flashing lights of the police car a stark reminder of the danger we'd faced. Rachel may be gone, but her legacy lingers, a shadow that follows me through the years, a reminder of how fragile peace can be, how quickly a storm can descend and change everything. I wonder sometimes if I'll ever truly escape her, if the sound of a knock at the door will ever stop feeling like a threat, a whisper of the past that refuses to let me go. Have you ever carried a childhood fear into adulthood? A sound or a memory that pulls you back to a moment of terror, its echo a reminder of a storm you thought you'd left behind. It was just 15 minutes ago, but the chill of that encounter still lingers on my skin, a memory so vivid I can't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. My wife and I had just left our friend's house, a cozy gathering that had stretched into the early hours of Saturday, May 24, 2025. The clock read 12:30 a.m., and the streets were draped in a heavy silence, the kind that makes every sound feel amplified, every shadow a potential threat. We were only a few blocks away, 2, maybe 4 at most, when we saw her. A figure standing under the faint glow of a street lamp, her silhouette eerily familiar. At first glance, I thought it was Wendy, our friend's mother, but the way she moved sent a jolt of unease through me, a primal warning that this wasn't right. She was dressed exactly as we'd seen Wendy less than an hour ago. Same navy blue, sweater, same jeans, even the same vibrant red hair dye that caught the light in a way that should have been comforting. But her movements were anything but normal. Her body twisted in ways that defied nature, jerking and bending as if controlled by some unseen force, her limbs contorting in a dance that was both hypnotic and horrifying. My wife gripped my arm, her breath shallow as we slowed the car to a crawl, unable to look away. Then, as if she sensed our gaze, the woman stopped, her unnatural motions ceasing in an instant. She turned to face us, her stance shifting into something predatory, a fighter's pose, her eyes locking onto ours with an intensity that made my blood run cold. Her expression was a paradox, filled with a raw, seething hatred, yet utterly devoid of emotion, a blank mask that somehow radiated malice. It was Wendy's face, but it wasn't Wendy, a doppelganger that wore her likeness like a cruel disguise. We sat frozen in the car, the air thick with tension, our hearts pounding. In unison, I wanted to roll down the window, to call out to her, to confirm it was Wendy and dispel the growing dread that clawed at my chest. But before I could, I saw it. The uncanny wrongness in her features, the way her eyes seemed to pierce through, the tinted windows as if she could see us, feel us, be with us. The glass should have shielded us, its dark tint a barrier against the outside world. But it felt as though she was inside the car, her presence pressing against us, suffocating us with an unspoken threat. For 10 long seconds, we stared at each other, her gaze unblinking, unwavering. A silent promise of something I couldn't comprehend. My wife's voice broke the silence, her words trembling as she whispered, "That's not Wendy." I nodded, unable to speak, the realization settling over us like a shroud. We weren't sure if it was her, But we knew, deep down, that it couldn't be. The spell broke and I pressed the gas pedal, the car lurching forward as we pulled away from the figure that stood like a statue under the street lamp. My hands trembled on the wheel, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. What was that thing? Why did it look like Wendy? We reached the next stop sign, a half block down the road, and I glanced in the rearview mirror, hoping she'd be gone, hoping it was all a trick of the mind. But she was there, moving toward us now, her steps deliberate, her direction shifted to follow our path, as if drawn by an invisible thread. My heart slammed against my ribs, a surge of panic propelling me to act. I turned the corner sharply, the tires screeching against the pavement, and sped off into the night, desperate to put distance between us and the thing that wore Wendy's face. We called our friend as soon as we were a safe distance away, our voices shaking as we asked him to check on his mother. He misunderstood at first, thinking we were worried about a break-in, and he and Wendy went to check the cars outside their house. Their voices came through the phone, calm and confused, confirming what we already knew. It wasn't her. The woman we'd seen, the thing that had stared at us with such hatred, was something else entirely. A mystery that left us reeling. That encounter, just 2 blocks from our friend's house, remains one of the most perplexing experiences of my life. A moment where reality bent and left me questioning everything I thought I knew. We thought the woods were our sanctuary, a place to escape, but something followed us and it wasn't human in its intent. It was 1996 and I was 17, a lanky girl at 5'7" and 125 pounds, my blonde hair catching the sunlight like a halo. Best friend Chrissy, 17 and a half, was smaller at 5'4" and 110 pounds, but her athletic build from years of soccer made her a force to be reckoned with. With our matching blue eyes and golden hair, people often mistook us for sisters, a question we'd laugh off as we shared our teenage adventures. But that Saturday, in a park by the reservoir, our laughter turned to terror and the woods became a predator's hunting ground. Chrissy's town had a large reservoir on its outskirts, encircled by a sprawling public park, a place where trails wound through dense trees and the air hummed with the songs of nature. It was a popular spot for hikers, a haven we thought was safe, especially on a bright sunny day. I'd scored some high-quality weed, the kind that promised a peaceful escape, and we were eager to find a quiet spot to smoke, to let the world fade away in a haze of relaxation. I tucked my pipe into my pocket, the weight of it a small comfort, and we set out, our spirits high, our laughter echoing as we drove to the park. Have you ever felt the thrill of a secret plan, the kind that makes your heart race with anticipation, only to have it twist into dread? It was a beautiful day, the sky a brilliant blue, the temperature hovering around 80 degrees, warm enough to make us sweat as we stepped out of Chrissy's car. The parking lot by the reservoir was nearly empty, just 2 other cars idling in the distance, their owners nowhere in sight. We didn't see anyone else as we arrived, the park stretching out before us like an untouched canvas, its trails beckoning us into the shade of the trees. We walked around the water's edge for a while, the gentle ripples catching the sunlight, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Then we chose a trail, a narrow path that wound upward through the forest, our footsteps soft on the packed dirt, our small day pack slung over my shoulder with a bottle of water inside. We'd gone about a quarter mile, the trail climbing gently, when a strange feeling settled over me, a prickling at the back of my neck that made my skin crawl. Sensory overload. The air seemed to thicken, the scent of wildflowers turning sour, the sunlight filtering through the leaves in jagged patches, and my heartbeat quickened, a silent alarm I couldn't ignore. I glanced at Chrissy, Her face flushed from the heat and whispered, "Hey, do you feel like something's off? It's too quiet." Where there should have been the chirping of crickets, the croaking of frogs, there was nothing, just an oppressive silence that pressed against my ears, a void where life should have been. The woods were holding their breath and I knew something was wrong. Chrissy's eyes met mine, wide and searching, and she nodded, her voice barely a murmur. "Yeah, I think so." Then we heard it. A faint rustling of leaves about 60 feet, behind us and slightly to the left, a sound that didn't belong in the stillness. We froze, straining to see through the dense underbrush, but there was no one there, just the endless green of the forest. We moved forward, our steps cautious, but the unease grew, a tight knot in my chest. The rustling came again, closer this time, a deliberate sound that sent a shiver down my spine. Trance loop. Someone's there. Someone's there. Someone's there. My mind chanted, the realization sinking in like a cold blade. We still couldn't see anyone, but the footsteps followed, growing nearer with each passing second. Pattern interruption. We weren't alone. We were being stalked, and the forest knew it before we did. Panic surged through me and I scanned the trail ahead, spotting a turnoff to the left that led to a clearing. At its edge stood a massive rock, about 12 feet high, a sturdy rope anchored to its top, a lifeline for climbers. It jutted out from a steep hillside, a natural fortress above a cliff, the rope secured to the ground so no one could tamper with it. "We need to get up there," I said, my voice sharp with urgency. "We need high ground." Chrissy nodded, her face pale but determined, and she went first, her hands gripping the rope as she climbed, her soccer-honed muscles propelling her upward. I followed close behind, my heart pounding as we scaled the rock, our movements frantic, the rope rough against my palms. We reached the top, our breaths coming in ragged gasps, and turned to look down at the clearing below. There he was, a man, about 45 years old, his slight build deceptively frail, his cold blue eyes staring up at us with a vacancy that froze my blood. He wore a worn jacket, jeans, and glasses, his expression blank, devoid of humanity, a predator's gaze that sent goosebumps racing across my skin. He was 20 feet away, standing at the edge of the clearing, and I shouted, my voice trembling but firm, "Please, leave us alone. We just want some privacy." His silence was louder than any threat, a void that promised violence. He didn't respond, his face unchanging, and then he moved, slowly, deliberately, toward the rope that led to our perch. Chrissy's voice shook as she whispered, "What do we do?" I scanned the rock, spotting a large, square stone to my right, about 8 inches wide. I grabbed it, the weight heavy in my hands, but adrenaline surged through me, making it feel light as a feather. "Find the biggest rocks you can," I told her, my voice low and urgent. "Move them here, hold the biggest one. If he tries to come up, we throw them at him, aim for his head." Behind us, to the left, was a pile of sizable rocks, remnants of an old fire ring, and Chrissy gathered a few, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. We stood near the edge, clutching our makeshift weapons, the rocks a cold promise of survival. I looked down at the man now at the base of the rock, his hand hovering near the rope. His cold blue eyes met mine again, empty and unfeeling, a predator sizing up its prey. He reached for the rope, his movement slow, deliberate, and I shouted, my voice echoing through the trees, "Do not come up here. If you try, you'll get hurt. We're aiming for your head, so get away from us." I held the rock to my chest, showing him our intent. Chrissy beside me with her own stone, a pile of others at our feet. He blinked, his head tilting slightly, and then he released the rope, stepping back, his gaze never leaving us. He retreated to the edge of the clearing, walking backward through the brush, his eyes fixed on us, unblinking, a silent promise that he wasn't done. The sound of his footsteps faded into the woods, swallowed by the returning hum of crickets, a sign he was gone. For now. Nested storytelling. My uncle once told me about a hiker in these woods who felt watched, only to find footprints circling his camp at night, footprints that stopped at the edge of a cliff, as if the watcher had vanished into thin air. I'd thought it was just a story, but now, as we stood on that rock, I knew better. We waited 20 minutes, maybe more, our breath shallow, our eyes scanning the trees for any sign of him. The hillside was covered in poison oak, the only other way up, and we'd hear him if he tried, but we took no chances. When the silence held, we decided to make our escape. We threw several rocks down the trail, their weight hitting the dirt with a satisfying force, a warning to anything that might follow. Chrissy went first, descending the rope while I kept watch, my hands trembling, but ready to act. I followed, her standing guard below, a rock in her hand, poised to strike if he returned. He didn't. We each grabbed the largest rocks we could carry, stuffing smaller ones into our pockets, and made our way back to the car, moving carefully, quietly, our senses on high alert. Anchoring. The returning song of the crickets anchored us in a fragile safety, but we knew it could be a lie, a trick to lure us into complacency. We reached the car, our hearts still racing, and drove away, the park fading in the rearview mirror. That was the last time I ever set foot in that place, a sanctuary turned into a nightmare. The memory of his cold blue eyes, his silent pursuit, haunts me still, a reminder that even the brightest days can hide the darkest threats. What if the shadow you thought was protecting you had been waiting all along to claim you? 3 years ago, in 2021, my life unraveled. A brutal breakup with my girlfriend left me shattered, the kind of heartbreak that hollows you out, leaving nothing but echoes of what you used to be. With nowhere else to go, I moved back in with my mom, seeking refuge in the familiar walls of her apartment in a quiet block of flats. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a place to heal, but the past has a way of following you, doesn't it? I've always been haunted, not by heartbreak, but by something else, something I couldn't explain. Since I was 10, a shadow had lingered. At the edges of my life, a woman I'd see out of the corner of my eye. She'd appear around walls, behind door frames, her gaze fixed on me, silent and unyielding. As a child, it terrified me, the way she'd watch, never moving, never speaking, just there. I told my mom about her once, my voice trembling as I described the figure that seemed to follow me through the years. Mom smiled, her tone soothing. She's probably just watching over you, keeping you safe. I clung to that idea, desperate for comfort, and for a long time I believed it. The woman never threatened me, never did anything but watch, her presence a constant I learned to live with. No one else ever saw her, and the moment I'd turn to face her, she'd vanish, only to reappear when I looked away, her shadowy head peeking from another corner. This went on for 12 years, from childhood into my teens, across different houses, different cities, with no pattern. Sometimes twice a week, sometimes not for months, once even a year. But always the same, watching, waiting, a silent witness to my life. Fast forward to 2021, the height of the pandemic, when I found myself back in Mom's apartment, a small space in a block of flats that felt both familiar and foreign. The apartment was split in two. Walk through the front door, and you'd choose left for the living room and Mom's bedroom down the hall, or right for the bathroom, kitchen, and my room directly across from it. My bed faced the door, giving me a clear view of the hallway and kitchen when it was open. the frosted glass of the front door, letting in just enough light from the communal stairwell to cast a faint glow at night. I'd been there for months, I don't recall exactly how long, when it happened. An event that drove me out faster than any breakup ever could. I've always had a specific way of sleeping, a ritual that brought me comfort. On my stomach, one arm tucked under the pillow, one leg bent up, never on my back, never waking that way either. That night I followed my routine, slipping into bed with the lights off, a YouTube video playing softly in the background, the door firmly shut for privacy. The familiar hum of voices lulled me into sleep, my body sinking into the mattress. The darkness a blanket I thought I could trust. Then I woke. It wasn't a gentle stirring, but a jolt, a sudden awareness that something was terribly wrong. I was on my back, half propped against my pillows as if I'd been sitting up reading or scrolling on my phone. But I hadn't. My arms lay stiff at my sides, and my eyes darted to the door. It was wide open. My heart stuttered, a cold dread creeping up my spine. The faint light from the stairwell spilled into the hallway, illuminating the kitchen across from my room. And there, in the doorway, stood a figure, its back to the kitchen, facing me. I blinked, my vision adjusting to the dim glow, and as I focused, the figure moved, slipping to the right toward the living room and the front door. My pulse quickened, a frantic rhythm echoing in my ears. Had I really seen that? I sat there frozen, my mind racing to process the impossible, the air thick with an unease I couldn't shake. Then, slowly, she came back. The figure returned, standing directly in my doorway, her gaze locked on me. I knew her instantly, a recognition that hit me like a punch to the gut. It was the same woman I'd seen since I was 10, the one I'd convinced myself was a guardian. But this time she wasn't just watching. This time, I felt scared, threatened. I couldn't see her body, couldn't make out her form in the shadows, but her eyes burned into me. They were a dark, molten yellow, glowing with an intensity that shouldn't have been possible. In the dim light, I wear glasses, my vision poor without them, yet I saw those eyes with a clarity that defied logic, their color searing into my mind. I'd never known fear like this, a primal terror that stripped away every rational thought. I felt like prey, cornered, helpless, as if I were staring into the gaze of a predator who'd been waiting for this moment my entire life. Tears welled up, spilling silently down my cheeks, but I couldn't make a sound, couldn't scream for Mom, couldn't move. People I've told this story to later insisted it was sleep paralysis, but I know it wasn't. She moved. She stepped into my room, her presence a weight that pressed against my chest, making each breath a struggle. I couldn't tell if she walked or floated, her movements unnatural, fluid as if the laws of the physical world didn't apply to her. She covered the 10 feet from the doorway to my bed in an instant, gliding to the far side of my king-sized mattress. I always slept on the right, closest to the door, but she stood on the left, looming over me. The floor was littered with wrappers, remnants of late-night snacks, and I heard them crinkle under her, a sound so real it made my blood run cold. She stood there watching, her yellow eyes unblinking, her gaze a silent promise of something I didn't want to understand. I was paralyzed, my body locked in place, tears streaming as fear consumed me. But then somehow I moved. I rolled onto my right side, facing away from her, my breath shallow, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I lay there staring at the wall, feeling her presence behind me, knowing she was still watching. Minutes stretched into eternity, maybe 3, maybe 5, though it felt like hours, before darkness claimed me, a sudden blackout that swallowed my consciousness whole. People wake from sleep paralysis. They don't black out. This was something else. I woke the next morning on my side as I always did. The door closed, sunlight streaming through the curtains. The apartment bright and normal. But nothing felt normal. For 2 weeks I couldn't sleep, terror gripping me each night as I waited for her to return, her yellow eyes haunting my every thought. Just as I began to find peace again, to sleep without fear, it happened again. I jolted awake, on my stomach this time in my usual recovery position, deep into a dreamless sleep. Instinct screamed at me to look behind, and I did, my heart stopping as I saw a face inches from mine, its features blurred but unmistakably hers. She pulled back, vanishing into the darkness as if she'd never been there. I rolled over, forcing myself to sleep, refusing to face whatever this was, my mind a whirlwind of fear and denial. I'm 25 now, and it's been 2 years since that last encounter. I haven't seen her since, haven't felt her presence, but the memory lingers, a shadow that refuses to fade. I moved out soon after, desperate for a fresh start, praying that whatever she was, guardian, demon, or something else, had finally gotten what she wanted. I hope she's gone. But deep down, I fear she's still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to return. Some shadows never truly leave. I woke in the dead of night, my bedroom door wide open, and there she stood. A woman with glowing golden eyes, her gaze piercing through me like a predator claiming its prey. It was 2021, the height of the pandemic, and I was back in my mother's house in a quiet corner of England, a place that should have been a sanctuary after the wreckage of my relationship. I was 25 now, but the memories of her presence stretched back to my childhood, a shadow that had followed me through the years, always watching, always waiting. Feel that primal fear now, the kind that grips your heart when you realize something has been hunting you your whole life, lurking just out of sight. Her eyes, those burning golden orbs, were a nightmare made real, a vision that turned my safe haven into a place of terror, leaving me to wonder if I'd ever truly escape her. 3 years ago, I'd moved back in with my mom after a painful breakup, my life in tatters, my heart a shattered thing I didn't know how to mend. The relationship had been a storm, one that left me battered and broken, and I needed a place to heal, to rebuild. My mother's house was a modest 2-story home, its walls painted a soft cream, its rooms filled with the comforting scent of lavender from the candles she loved to burn. Picture it, a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where nothing bad should ever happen, where the world feels safe and warm. The front door opened into a small hallway, splitting left to the living room and my mom's bedroom, right to the bathroom, kitchen, and my room, a space I'd claimed as my own, a sanctuary where I could escape the chaos of the world. I'd always been a light sleeper, my mind restless even in the deepest hours of the night, but I'd never felt unsafe here. Not until the memories of my childhood began to resurface. Memories of a woman who'd haunted me since I was 10 years old. It started when I was a child, a decade of quiet terror that I'd tried to bury, to dismiss as the overactive imagination of a young boy. I'd see her out of the corner of my eye, a shadowy figure with long, dark hair, her form indistinct but unmistakably human, peering around walls or door frames, always watching me. Feel that unease now, the kind that prickles your skin when you sense something just out of sight, something that knows you're there. She never spoke, never moved closer, just watched, her presence a constant weight that made my heart race, my breath catch in my throat. I told my mom about her once, my voice trembling as I described the woman who wouldn't leave me alone. She'd smiled, her tone gentle as she reassured me, saying it was probably just a guardian spirit, Someone watching over me, protecting me. I'd clung to that explanation, desperate for comfort, and over time, I convinced myself it was true. But even as a child, I knew there was something wrong, something sinister in the way she watched, the way she appeared in every house I'd ever lived in, her presence a shadow that followed me through the years. Sometimes I'd see her twice. In a week, her form flickering in the dim light of a hallway, her head tilted as if studying me, her gaze unblinking, relentless. Then she'd vanish for months, leaving me to wonder if I'd imagined her, only to reappear when I least expected it. Once after a year of absence, her silhouette stark against the moonlight streaming through my bedroom window. Imagine living with that, knowing something is watching you, waiting for you, and you can never predict when it'll return. I'd turn my head to face her, my heart pounding, but she'd always disappear, a ghost that refused to be confronted, leaving me with nothing but the lingering chill of her presence. It was always the same, just watching, a silent sentinel that seemed to know my every move, my every fear. I'd grown accustomed to her over the years, the terror dulling into a quiet unease, a part of my life I'd learned to live with, to ignore. But that night in 2021, everything changed. I don't remember how long I'd been back at my mom's house. Weeks, maybe months, but the weight of my breakup still hung heavy on my shoulders, a burden I couldn't shake. I'd fallen into a routine, staying up late to watch YouTube videos, the soft glow of my phone screen a comforting distraction from the ache in my chest. That night, I'd gone to bed as usual, the room dark save for the faint light of a street lamp, filtering through the curtains, the air thick with the scent of rain that had fallen earlier in the day. See it now, a small bedroom, the bed facing the door, the walls lined with faded posters, the air heavy with the quiet of the night. I always slept on my stomach, one arm tucked under my pillow, one leg bent, a position that had always felt natural, safe. I'd never slept on my back, never woken that way, until that night. I woke suddenly, my eyes snapping open, a cold dread settling into my bones as I realized something was wrong. I was on my back, half propped against my pillows as if I'd fallen asleep reading or scrolling through my phone, my arms resting stiffly at my sides. That's when I saw it. My bedroom door was wide open, the hallway beyond bathed in a faint silvery light from the frosted glass of the front door, illuminating the kitchen and the space outside my room. And there she stood, in the doorway, her silhouette stark against the dim light, a woman tall and slender, her long dark hair falling in tangled waves around her shoulders. Feel that terror now, the kind that locks your body in place, your breath shallow, as you realize you're not alone. She moved, stepping to the right as if heading toward the front door, her motion smooth, almost gliding. But then she stopped, her head turning slowly back to face me, her eyes locking onto mine. I knew her immediately, the recognition hitting me like a punch to the gut. It was the same woman who'd watched me since I was a child, the same presence that had haunted me through the years. But this time, she wasn't just a shadow, a fleeting glimpse in the corner of my eye. This time I felt her, felt the weight of her gaze, the malice in her stare, and I saw her eyes, glowing golden eyes that burned with an unnatural light, piercing through the darkness like twin flames. Imagine staring into those eyes, eyes that aren't human, eyes that see straight through you, stripping away every defense you've ever had. I'd always been short-sighted, my vision blurry without my glasses, but I saw those eyes with a clarity that defied logic, their golden glow searing into my mind, a vision of pure, primal terror. I'd never felt fear like that before, a raw, animal instinct that screamed at me to run, to fight, to do anything to escape the predator standing in my doorway. My heart pounded, a frantic rhythm that echoed in my ears, my breath coming in shallow, as I tried to scream to call for my mom, but nothing came out. Just air, a silent plea that went unanswered. She moved again, stepping into my room, her presence filling the space with a cold, heavy weight that pressed against my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. Feel that suffocation now, the kind that makes you feel small, helpless, as something ancient and malevolent closes in. She glided across the room, the 10 feet from the doorway to my bed disappearing in an instant, her movements silent save for the faint rustle of wrappers on the floor, the sound of her steps, or her gliding, crushing the debris beneath her. She stopped at the far side of my king-sized bed where I always slept on the right, closer to the door, and she stood there watching me, her golden eyes unblinking, her gaze a physical force that pinned me in place. I was paralyzed, my body trembling, tears streaming down my face as I fought against the fear that held me captive, the terror that made my limbs feel like lead. She loomed over me, her presence a nightmare I couldn't escape, her eyes burning into mine, stripping away every ounce of courage I had left. Imagine being trapped, unable to move, unable to scream, as something watches you, something that knows you're afraid. I managed to roll onto my right side, facing away from her, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I clung to the edge of the bed, my mind screaming for this to end. I lay there for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only 3 to 5 minutes, my body shaking, my heart pounding, until I blacked out, the darkness swallowing me whole. When I woke, the room was bathed in the soft light of dawn, the curtains glowing with the first rays of sunlight, the air warm and still. My bedroom door was closed as if nothing had happened, as if the nightmare had been just that, a dream. But I knew it wasn't. The memory of her eyes, those golden burning eyes, was too vivid, too real, a scar on my mind that refused to fade. I couldn't sleep for weeks after that, my nights filled with terror, my eyes darting to the door every time I heard a sound, waiting for her to return. I'd thought I'd escaped her, thought the nightmare was over, but a week or two later, it happened again. I woke in the dead of night, my body on its side, the position I'd always found comfort in, but a cold dread settled into my bones as I felt her presence, felt her watching me. I turned my head, and there she was. Her face was inches from mine, her golden eyes glowing in the darkness, her features indistinct but unmistakably hers. A nightmare made flesh. I nearly jumped out of my skin, my heart racing, my breath catching in my throat as she pulled back, retreating into the shadows, her form vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. I didn't know what to do, didn't know how to face her, so I rolled over, my body trembling, and forced myself back to sleep, desperate to escape the reality of her presence. Imagine trying to sleep, knowing something is there, something that's been watching you for years, waiting for its moment. I don't know if it was the same entity that night, but I know it was her. The same woman who'd haunted me since I was a child. The same woman who'd turned my safe haven into a place of terror. It's been 2 years since those nights, and I haven't seen her since. Haven't felt her presence, but the memory of her golden eyes still haunts me. A nightmare I can't escape. I pray she's gone, that she got what she wanted and left me alone. But deep down, I know she's still out there waiting, watching, ready to return when I least expect it. A few years ago, I had a terrifying experience with an Uber driver that still haunts me. A memory that surfaces whenever I think about the fragility of safety in the modern world. I had just finished a grueling late shift at work, the clock ticking. Past 1 a.m., my body heavy with exhaustion as I stood on the empty street, the city around me cloaked in darkness. The air was cold, a sharp bite that cut through my thin jacket, and the streetlights cast long, eerie shadows that danced across the pavement, their flickering light a stark reminder of how alone I was. I ordered an Uber to get home, the app's familiar ping a small comfort in the stillness, and when the car pulled up, I felt a flicker of relief, until I got in. The driver seemed normal at first, a middle-aged man with a quiet demeanor, his face half hidden in the dim glow of the dashboard. He nodded at me as I slid into the back seat, the scent of stale cigarettes and cheap air freshener filling the air. A faint hum of the engine the only sound as we pulled away. But as soon as we started driving, the atmosphere shifted. He reached over and locked the doors with a deliberate click that echoed in the silence, a sound that sent a shiver down my spine. Then he turned off the radio, cutting off the soft music that had been playing, plunging the car into an oppressive silence that felt heavier with each passing second. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, the leather creaking beneath me, my hands gripping my phone as a wave of unease washed over me. The locked doors and sudden quiet a signal that something wasn't right. The city lights blurred past the window, their glow a distant promise of safety I couldn't reach, and I felt the first stirrings of fear take root in my chest. A quiet whisper that this ride was about to become something far more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. Have you ever felt the air shift in a moment? A simple action like a locked door turning a routine journey into a descent into fear, where every second feels like a step into the unknown? As the car rolled through the darkened streets, the silence grew heavier, a suffocating weight that pressed against my chest, each moment stretching into an eternity of unease. Then, the driver broke the silence, his voice low and probing, cutting through the quiet like a blade. He started asking me personal questions, each one more invasive than the last, his tone deceptively casual, but laced with an undercurrent of something darker, something that made my skin crawl. "Do you live alone?" he asked, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror, catching mine for a brief, unsettling moment before returning to the road. "Do you have a boyfriend? Is anyone expecting you at home?" The questions came one after another, relentless, each one a violation of the unspoken boundary between driver and passenger, each one tightening the knot of fear in my stomach. I tried to brush them off, my voice trembling as I gave vague answers. "I live with friends, I'm meeting someone." My words a fragile shield against his probing gaze. But he kept pushing, his voice growing softer, more insidious, as if he were testing my defenses. "You look like you need someone to take care of you," he said, his words dripping with a false concern that sent a chill racing down my spine, my mind screaming that this man wasn't just making small talk, he was searching for something, for a vulnerability he could exploit. My panic deepened as I glanced at my phone, the Uber app's map glowing on the screen, and realized we were on a dark, empty road, far from the city lights, the route veering sharply away from the path the app had outlined. I told him to stick to the GPS, my voice sharper now, edged with a fear I couldn't hide. But he just laughed, a low, chilling sound that echoed in the confined space of the car, and said, "I know a shortcut." His words were a lie, a flimsy excuse that did nothing to ease the terror clawing at my chest, the realization hitting me like a wave. He wasn't taking me home, and I was trapped in this car with a man whose intentions were growing darker with every passing second. The road stretched out before us, a black ribbon winding through the night, the headlights cutting through the darkness but revealing nothing but emptiness, a void that mirrored the fear consuming me. Can you feel the dread of being trapped with a stranger? Their words a probe into your life, their actions a deviation from safety, each moment a step closer to a danger you can't predict. At that moment, as the car hurtled down the dark, empty road, the full weight of my situation crashed over me like a tidal wave. I knew something was terribly wrong. The driver's deviation from the route a clear sign that I was in danger, trapped in a moving prison with a man whose intentions were shrouded in menace. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic rhythm that drowned out the hum of the engine. My palms slick with sweat as I gripped my phone, the only lifeline I had in this nightmare. I forced myself to think through the panic, my mind racing for a way out, and I quickly texted my friend, my fingers trembling as I typed, sharing my live location with a desperate plea for her to call me in a few minutes, hoping her voice would be the anchor I needed to escape. The seconds ticked by, each one an eternity, the driver's silence now a menacing presence. His earlier words, "You need someone to take care of you," echoing in my mind like a sinister promise, his gaze occasionally flicking to the rear view mirror, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I stared out the window, the darkness beyond a void that offered no comfort, the road stretching endlessly into the night, each turn taking me further from safety, further from the world I knew. When my friend's call finally came, the ringtone, piercing the oppressive silence, I answered with a shaky voice, pretending it was an emergency. My words a carefully crafted lie as I spoke loudly enough for the driver to hear. "I need to get out now. There's an emergency at home," I said. My voice trembling but firm, my eyes locked on the driver's reflection in the mirror, watching for any sign of resistance. He went quiet, his hands tightening on the steering wheel, his face unreadable in the dim light. But after a tense moment, he slowed the car, pulling over to the side of the road with a reluctant sigh. The locks clicked open, a sound that felt like freedom itself, and I didn't hesitate. I flung the door open, my legs unsteady as I stumbled out into the cold night air, the gravel crunching beneath my feet as I put as much distance as I could between myself and the car. I didn't look back, my breath coming in sharp gasps, my heart still racing as I ran toward the faint glow of a gas station in the distance, the promise of safety driving me forward. What would you do, trapped in a car with a stranger whose intentions grow darker, each second a gamble? Your only hope a desperate plan to escape the unknown. I reached the gas station, my legs trembling as I stumbled through the doors, the fluorescent lights a harsh contrast to the darkness I'd just escaped, their glare a beacon of safety in a night that had turned into a nightmare. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed the police, my voice cracking as I explained what had happened, the words tumbling out in a rush as the adrenaline coursed through me. The clerk behind the counter watched me with wide eyes, his expression a mix of concern and confusion, but I barely noticed, my focus on the voice on the other end of the line. The officer's calm tone a lifeline as I recounted the driver's behavior, the personal questions, the wrong turn, the terror that had gripped me. The police found the driver later that night, his car a dark specter on the empty roads, and what they discovered sent a fresh wave of chills down my spine. He had a history of stalking, a past filled with shadows that had already led to him being banned from driving for Uber, a ban he'd somehow circumvented to prey on passengers like me. The revelation hit me like a punch, the reality of how close I'd come to something far worse settling into my bones, a cold truth that refused to let go. I still get chills thinking about that night, the memory of the locked doors, the drivers, probing questions, the dark road stretching endlessly before me, each detail etched into my mind with a clarity that time can't erase. I often wonder what might have happened if I hadn't acted quickly, if I hadn't texted my friend, if her call hadn't given me the excuse I needed to escape. Would I have made it home that night? Or would I have become another story? Another name in a police report? A cautionary tale whispered in the dark? The thought haunts me, a shadow that lingers in the quiet moments, a reminder of how fragile safety can be, how a routine ride can turn into a descent into fear with a single wrong turn. I can still feel the weight of his gaze in the rearview mirror, the oppressive silence of that car, the way the night seemed to close in around me, a void that offered no escape. It's a memory I can't shake, a fear that resurfaces whenever I step into an Uber late at night, the echo of that driver's voice a whisper in the dark that I'll never forget. Have you ever escaped a danger so close that its memory lingers? A chill that follows you through the years, a reminder of how quickly safety can unravel in the dead of night. It was a night meant for laughter and movies, but by 5 a.m. the laughter had turned to terror, and I realized how fragile our sense of safety truly was. I'm a sophomore in college, living in a student housing sector with 3 other girls, a quaint little house we'd transformed into a festive haven. We'd gone all out for Halloween, decorating with pastel pumpkins, glittery spider webs, and fairy lights that cast a whimsical glow across our living room. Our home faced the main street of the neighborhood, a busy stretch during the day, but at night it fell into an eerie stillness. The backyard, though, was a different story, hidden behind a tangle of trees and bushes, with a narrow trail leading to our back door, a path so tucked away it felt like a secret, one that suddenly seemed far too vulnerable. Our house had a large glass window on the back door, a feature we'd always overlooked, never thinking to cover it. It offered a clear view of the entire lower floor, our living room, the kitchen, every corner exposed to anyone who might peer through. That night, my roommate and I were sprawled on the couch, watching a rom-com that had lulled us into a drowsy, we weren't supposed to fall asleep there. The couch was lumpy, uncomfortable, a place we usually avoided for rest. But exhaustion had other plans. Every light in the house was on, a habit we kept to feel safe, the warm glow illuminating our girly decor in a way that should have felt comforting. But as the hours slipped into the early morning, that light became a beacon, a signal to something or someone outside, watching us in our vulnerable slumber. I jolted awake at 5 a.m., my roommate's frantic shaking pulling me from a dream I couldn't recall. Her voice was a panicked whisper, her eyes wide with terror as she hissed, "B, get up, someone's trying to get in." My heart lurched, a cold wave of dread washing over me as I sat up, following her gaze to the back door. There he was, a man in a dark hoodie, his face obscured by shadows, standing just beyond the glass, a flashlight in one hand and a thin tool in the other, scraping at the lock with a deliberate, chilling focus. The sound was unmistakable, a metallic scratching that pierced the silence. Not the jingle of keys, but the calculated effort of someone who didn't belong. We froze, our breath shallow, as his flashlight beam danced across the glass, illuminating the room and us in its harsh glare. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The 3 of us locked in a silent standoff, his shadowed form a menacing silhouette against the darkness of the backyard. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, though it was likely only a minute, each second stretching into a lifetime of fear. His gaze, though I couldn't see his eyes, felt like a physical weight, pressing against us through the glass, as if he could reach in and pull us into the night. Then, as if sensing our terror, he stopped, his movements ceasing with an eerie abruptness. He stepped back, the flashlight beam dropping to the ground, and melted into the darkness, leaving nothing but the echo of that scraping sound in my ears. My body moved before my mind could catch up, adrenaline propelling me to the door, my hands trembling as I checked the lock. ensuring it held firm against whatever had been trying to breach it. The glass felt cold under my fingertips, a fragile barrier between us and the unknown, and I turned to my roommate, her face pale, her eyes still fixed on the spot where he'd stood. We didn't hesitate. We grabbed our phones and called the police, our voices shaking as we explained what had happened. We reached out to friends in the area, needing the comfort of familiar voices to anchor us in the aftermath of that chilling encounter. The police arrived 45 minutes later, their flashlights cutting through the dawn, but the backyard was empty, the trail leading to the door devoid of any trace of the man who'd been there. They listened to our story, their expressions a mix of concern and skepticism, and suggested it might have been a drunk college student, a prank gone wrong, or perhaps someone with darker intentions. "Call us if anything else happens," they said, their words hollow, offering no comfort as they left us to face the morning alone. We sat there, wrapped in blankets on the couch. The memory of that man's silhouette burned into our minds, a shadow that refused to fade. In the days that followed, we took every precaution we could, installing cameras around the house, adding window stoppers covering every inch of glass to shield us from prying eyes. But the fear lingered, a constant whisper in the back of my mind, a reminder that our sanctuary had been violated. 3 weeks later, an actual break-in occurred, a story for another time. But that night at 5 a.m. had already changed us. I can't stop wondering, was he just a drunk student or was he something more sinister? A predator who'd seen our lights and chosen us as his target. I'd love to hear what others think, to find some clarity in the haze of that terrifying night. I felt him before I saw him, a shadow heavier than the darkness, a presence that turned my hotel room into a cage. Last night I was staying in a hotel, a nondescript place I'd checked into for a work trip, expecting nothing more than a quiet sleep before a busy day. But something happened, something I can't explain, something that clawed its way into my mind and refuses to let go. Have you ever woken to a sound that shouldn't be there? A sound that makes your blood run cold? I'm a light sleeper, the kind who stirs at the slightest disturbance. And that night in the pitch-black room, I jolted awake to the unmistakable sound of a chair moving across the floor. A slow, deliberate scrape that echoed in the silence. The room was a void, the darkness so thick I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. My heart pounded, a frantic rhythm that drowned out the quiet hum of the air conditioning, and I lay frozen, straining to hear more. Sensory overload. The air felt heavy, the faint scent of stale carpet and cleaning products stinging my nose, the darkness pressing against my skin like a physical weight, and my pulse roared in my ears, a storm I couldn't silence. I travel, often for work, staying in hotels and Airbnbs across the country, so I always carry a small flashlight in my bag, a habit born from too many unfamiliar rooms. I fumbled for it, my fingers trembling as I pulled it from the side pocket and flicked it on, the narrow beam cutting through the dark like a lifeline. I pointed the light toward the desk area where the chair sat, expecting to see it askew, proof of the sound that had woken me. But the chair was exactly where I'd left it, perfectly aligned with the desk, mocking my fear with its stillness. I felt a wave of confusion, my mind spiraling. Was I going crazy? Had I imagined it? The beam of light trembled in my hand, casting jittery shadows on the walls, but there was nothing out of place, no sign of movement, just the sterile emptiness of the room. I couldn't shake the feeling, though, a gnawing dread that kept me from closing my eyes again. I lay back down, keeping the flashlight on, its beam pointed at the chair like a sentinel. a frail barrier against the unknown. I whispered to myself, "You're imagining things. You're safe. Everything's fine." But the words felt hollow, a desperate attempt to tether myself to reality. Trance loop. "It's not real, it's not real, it's not real," I chanted. But the fear wouldn't let go, coiling tighter with every passing second. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving toward the bed. Each step a heavy thud that reverberated through the floor. I grabbed the flashlight and sat up, my breath shallow, my hands shaking as I swept the beam around the room. Pattern interruption. There was nothing there, but the footsteps kept coming closer, closer, closer. A predator's pace that promised no escape. My chest tightened, my skin prickling with goosebumps, and then I felt it. The bed shifted beneath me, a subtle dip as if someone had sat down at the edge. The mattress creaking under an invisible weight. Fear like I'd never known flooded through me. A primal terror that rooted me to the spot, my body frozen while my mind screamed to run. I kept the flashlight moving, its light darting across the room. But there was nothing. No shape, no shadow, just the empty space that felt anything but empty. Sensory overload. The air turned icy, the scent of damp earth creeping into the room, the faint hum of the air conditioning now a distant drone, and my heartbeat thundered, drowning out everything but the dread. Then I felt it. A presence, unmistakably male. A heavy, oppressive force that seemed to fill the room, pressing against me from all sides. And then it touched me, a tight grip around my waist, cold and unyielding, while a ragged breath rasped in my ear, so close I could feel its warmth. It was the most terrifying moment of my life, a violation that stripped away every sense of safety I'd ever known. I couldn't scream at first, my voice trapped in my throat, but the fear surged, giving me strength. I screamed, a raw, desperate sound, and twisted away from the unseen grasp, leaping out of bed toward the light switch on the wall. I flicked it on, the harsh fluorescent glow flooding the room, and the presence vanished. The grip, the breathing, the weight on the bed, gone in an instant, as if it had never been. I stood there, shaking uncontrollably, the flashlight still, clutched in my hand, my eyes darting around the room. There was nothing, no sign of anything, just the sterile hotel room, its normalcy a cruel mockery of what I'd felt. Anchoring. That moment, feeling his breath in my ear, anchored me in a terror I'll never escape, a memory that clings to me like a shadow. I stayed there for what felt like an eternity, maybe 5 minutes, trembling, unable to move, my mind replaying the sensation of that grip, that breath, over and over. Nested storytelling. My colleague once told me about a hotel she stayed in, where she woke to the feeling of someone watching her, only to find her door ajar at dawn, though she'd locked it tight. She never stayed in that chain again, and now I understood why. I called the front desk, my voice shaky as I demanded a new room, unable to even consider sleeping in that space again. They obliged, but the fear followed me, a lingering chill that hasn't left. I'm still shaken, and I'm starting to wonder if I need a ritual, a way to ward off whatever haunts these rooms I cannot see. I've been dog-sitting at a turn of the 20th century mansion in my historic neighborhood for years now, a gig that started innocently enough back in the fall of 2020. A friend connected me with a lovely family who needed someone to watch their puppy, a sweet little dog I came to know as Doggo. A true good boy in every sense. At first it was just a long weekend here and there, a chance to earn some extra cash while enjoying the charm of their stunning home. The mansion was a landmark, a piece of history preserved with care, its grandeur softened by warmth. It didn't feel imposing despite its size. Every nook and sitting area was meticulously decorated to be inviting, with plush chairs, soft lighting, and family photos lining the walls, capturing smiles and memories frozen in time. It was the kind of place you'd see in a catalog, an all-American dream home that ticked every box for an HGTV enthusiast. The owner clearly poured her heart into it, her love for the house evident in every detail, and Doggo, with his wagging tail and eager eyes, made the job feel like a privilege. But beneath the beauty, beneath the warmth, there was something else, something that made my skin crawl, something I couldn't name but could feel in every fiber of my being. It started subtly, a creeping unease I couldn't shake. Each time I stayed in that house, I felt different. Not just tired, but utterly exhausted, as if the very air sapped my strength, leaving me hollow. I'm an active person by nature, the kind who wakes up with energy, ready to tackle the day, but in that mansion I could barely move. My limbs felt heavy, my mind clouded with a deep, unexplainable sadness that clung to me like a fog. I didn't want to leave. It wasn't a rational fear, not at first. Just a strange, overwhelming dread at the thought of stepping outside. The longer I stayed, the worse it got. A creeping agoraphobia that turned the outside world into a threat I couldn't face. When I did muster the strength to run errands, grabbing groceries or taking a quick trip to the store, I felt a presence, an unshakable sense that I wasn't alone. It was as if something followed me, its unseen eyes boring into my back, urging me to return to the house. And when I did return, the dread intensified, a weight settling over me, whispering that I belonged there, that I shouldn't leave. I'd hear footsteps at night, soft but deliberate, echoing through the grand halls, their rhythm uneven as if pacing with intent. I'd wake in a cold sweat, my heart racing, terror gripping me with no apparent cause, the darkness of the house pressing against me like a living thing. The toll it took became undeniable. Just yesterday, I saw my boyfriend for a brief moment, a quick visit after 2 days in the mansion. He looked at me with concern, his voice hesitant as he said he'd noticed a change in me, a stark difference from the person I'd been before. I arrived. I didn't know how to explain it. Couldn't find the words to describe the heaviness, the sadness, the way I felt like a shadow of myself. He was so worried he thought I'd decided to end things, that in just 2 days, I'd fallen out of love. We were in that blissful, all-consuming phase of romance, the kind everyone envies. So his fear cut deep, a stark reminder of how much the house had changed me. I couldn't bear it any longer. Today, my third and final day of this gig, I knew I had to fight back, to break free from whatever this was. I called it an energy demon for lack of a better term, a force I could feel but couldn't see. I forced myself to go for a walk in the park, a desperate attempt to reclaim my strength. For 3 hours, I wandered through the green expanse, the fresh air a balm to my battered spirit. With each step, I felt the weight lift, my energy returning, as if the house's grip was slipping away, evaporating from my body, even from the fibers of my sweater. I breathed easier, the sun warming my face, the world feeling alive again, but the relief was fleeting. When I returned to the mansion to pack my things, to play with Doggo one last time and let him out into the yard, it came back. The energy surged stronger than ever, a force so intense I could almost hear it, a silent, insistent voice urging me to stay. I tidied the house, gathered my bags, my movements slow, deliberate, as if I were fighting through quicksand. Every step felt like a battle, the air thick with an unseen presence that seemed to argue with me, pleading, demanding that I not leave. It followed me through the house, its weight pressing against me as I moved from room to room, even trailing me into the bathroom. a shadow I couldn't escape. I felt it watching, its intent clear. It wanted me to stay, to surrender, to become part of the house itself. The sensation was overwhelming, a spiritual assault that left me drained, my body trembling with the effort of resisting. But the moment I stepped out of the house for the final time, the gig complete, it vanished. The weight lifted, the air cleared, and I was free, the mansion's hold on me broken as if it had never been there. It was always like this. The energy dissipated the second I left, leaving me to question my own sanity. I've been saying no to the owner more often over the past year, unable to bear the toll it takes. My best friend, needing the extra money, has taken over some of the gigs, but I warned her about the house's strange vibe. Her first time there, she texted me within hours, her words echoing my own. She felt off, deeply unsettled, the same heaviness I'd described. We've compared notes ever since, our experiences eerily similar. Another friend joined me there once when the loneliness and depression from the house became too much to bear alone. She didn't last long before she felt it too, the same oppressive energy seeping into her, turning her bright spirit dim. I've tried to find explanations, mold, gas leaks, anything that might explain it in an old home like this. But the house had a full renovation, complete with inspections just before I started sitting there. And the family seems happy, normal, untouched by whatever it is that haunts me. The only hint of something amiss is the owner herself. Kind, yes, but paranoid, anxious, always mentioning how desperately she needs to get away when she asks me to dog sit. Maybe she feels it too. This thing that lingers in the walls, it wants me. I can't shake the feeling that the house, or something inside it, is trying to drain me, to pull me in, until I melt into its very foundation, becoming a part of it, forever. It's a paradox, this place, bright, beautiful, the picture of perfection. But beneath the surface, there's something wrong, something that feeds on you until you're nothing left. I dread it, and I always will. I stepped into the grand, turn-of-the-century mansion, its beauty a mask for the darkness within, and felt an unseen force begin to drain my soul, whispering that I'd never leave. It was a job I'd taken on a whim, dog-sitting for a lovely family in my historic neighborhood, a task that should have been simple, even enjoyable. But over the years, that mansion became a place of dread, a labyrinth of beauty and terror that left me hollow, haunted by a presence I couldn't see but could feel in every fiber of my being. Feel that creeping dread now, the kind that settles into your bones when a place you thought was safe turns against you, pulling you into its shadows. The experiences I had there, the way it sapped my energy and followed me even when I left, have stayed with me. A lingering nightmare I can't shake. A warning of what lies beneath the surface of perfection. It started in the fall of 2020 when I met the family through a friend, a kind couple looking for someone to watch their puppy while they were away. I was young, broke, and eager for any gig that would put a few extra dollars in my pocket, so I jumped at the chance. The mansion was breathtaking, a precious landmark in our neighborhood. Its architecture a testament to a bygone era. Tall, arched windows framed by ivy, a wraparound porch with intricate railings, and a gabled roof that seemed to pierce the sky. Picture it, a grand, historic home, its walls whispering stories of the past, its beauty both inviting and intimidating. Inside, it was even more stunning. Every room a catalog of perfection. Polished hardwood floors, plush furniture in rich jewel tones, and walls adorned with beautiful family photos, their smiling faces a stark contrast to the unease that would soon take hold. The owners had poured their love into every detail, From the cozy nooks with overstuffed chairs to the vases of fresh flowers that filled the air with the scent of roses and lilacs. And the dog, a sweet, floppy-eared pup named Max, was a delight, his playful energy a bright spot in the looming grandeur of the house. At first, it felt like a dream job. I'd spend long weekends there every few months, then take on longer stints during spring breaks or summer trips when the family couldn't bring Max along. I'd play with him in the sprawling backyard, a lush expanse of green framed by ancient oaks, their branches heavy with Spanish moss that swayed in the breeze. The air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of grass and the faint tang of damp wood, and Max's joyful barks echoed through the yard as he chased after a ball, his tail wagging furiously. See it now. A perfect scene. A young woman and a dog, in a sunlit yard, laughter filling the air. A moment of pure, untainted joy. I'd settle into one of the mansion's many sitting areas, a cup of tea in hand, the warmth of the porcelain seeping into my fingers as I watched Max nap by the fireplace. The crackle of the flames, a soothing backdrop to the quiet afternoons. It should have been idyllic, a chance to escape the chaos of my life, to find peace in the beauty of this historic home. But beneath the surface, something was wrong, something that began to reveal itself the longer I stayed. It started subtly, a creeping sense of unease that I couldn't quite place, a feeling that grew with each visit. I'd feel exhausted, not just tired but utterly drained, as if the life was being sucked out of me, leaving me hollow and heavy. Feel that weight now, the kind that presses against your chest, making every movement feel like wading through molasses. I'd wake in the mornings, my body aching, my mind foggy as if I hadn't slept at all. Despite the plush comfort of the guest bed with its crisp, lavender-scented sheets, I'm an active person, someone who usually bounds out of bed bright-eyed and ready to face the day. But in that house, I felt listless, my energy sapped, my spirit weighed down by an invisible force. Sadness would wash over me in waves, a deep, unexplainable melancholy that made my chest ache, my eyes burn with unshed tears. And then there was the fear, a strange, irrational terror that gripped me whenever I thought about leaving the house, as if stepping outside would expose me to something even worse, something waiting just beyond the threshold. The longer I stayed, the worse it got, the mansion's beauty becoming a cruel facade, a mask for the darkness that lurked within. I'd hear footsteps echoing through the halls at night, soft and deliberate, as if someone, or something, was pacing just out of sight, their presence a shadow that followed me from room to room. Imagine hearing those steps, the faint creak of the floorboards, knowing you're supposed to be alone but the house tells you otherwise. I'd wake in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, my breath coming in shallow gasps as I strained to hear the sound again. To convince myself it was just the house settling, just my imagination. But the footsteps weren't the worst of it. Whenever I mustered the courage to leave, to run errands or buy groceries, I'd feel it following me, an unseen presence that clung to me like a second skin, its weight heavy on my shoulders, its gaze a constant pressure at the back of my neck. I'd glance over my shoulder, my eyes darting through the crowded streets, searching for something I couldn't name, something that made my skin crawl, my heart race. And when I returned to the mansion, the feeling would intensify, a spiritual assault that hit me the moment I crossed the threshold, as if the house itself was angry that I'd dared to leave. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself it was just stress, just my imagination running wild in the quiet of the old house. But then a friend of mine, Sarah, took over a few of my gigs when I started saying no more often, desperate to escape the mansion's grip. She texted me after her first night there, her words frantic, her tone laced with the same fear I'd felt. "This house is off," she wrote, her message glowing on my phone screen in the dim light of my room. "I feel so strange, like something's watching me." Feel that validation now, the kind that makes your stomach drop knowing you're not alone in your fear. But that knowledge only makes it worse. We compared our experiences, our stories mirroring each other with chilling accuracy. The exhaustion, the sadness, the fear, the feeling of being followed. Another friend, Emma, joined me there once when I was feeling particularly lonely. The mansion's weight too much to bear alone. She felt it too, her usual brightness dimming within hours, her laughter fading into a nervous edge as she confessed she felt off, as if the house was pressing down on her, draining her. I couldn't ignore it anymore, couldn't pretend it was all in my head. The mansion was a paradox, a place of beauty and light that hid something dark, something hungry. It felt like it wanted to consume me, to drain me until I melted into its walls, becoming a part of it forever. Imagine that, feeling a house pull at your soul, whispering that you belong to it, that you'll never leave. I considered every rational explanation, mold, gas leaks, anything that could explain the way it made me feel. But the family had just completed a full renovation, including inspections, and they seemed happy, unaffected by the darkness that plagued me. The only hint of something amiss was the owner's anxiety, her quiet confessions of needing to get away, her voice trembling as she spoke of her desperation to escape. But who isn't anxious these days, I told myself, clinging to the hope that I was wrong, that the mansion wasn't what I feared it to be. But I know what I felt, what I experienced, and I know there's something wrong with that house. Something that lingers in its walls, waiting for its next victim. I've stopped going back, stopped answering the family's calls, their kind voices a painful reminder of the terror I endured. Feel that relief now, the kind that comes with escape, but it's tainted by the fear that it's not over, that it'll find you again. The mansion still stands, a beautiful, haunting landmark in my neighborhood, its windows glinting in the sunlight, its walls hiding a darkness I'll never forget, a darkness that drained my soul and left me forever changed. Few years ago, I embarked on a solo trip, a journey meant to be a break from the chaos of everyday life, a chance to explore new places on a tight budget. I booked a cheap room in an old hotel, its faded sign and weathered facade a testament to its age, but I didn't mind. I was drawn to its charm, the promise of history etched into its walls, the kind of place where every creak told a story. The lobby was a relic of another time, its dim lighting casting long shadows across the worn carpet, the air thick with the scent of old wood and dust, a faint hum of nostalgia that made me smile as I checked in. My room was on the third floor, small space with peeling wallpaper and a single window that overlooked the quiet street below, the faint glow of a street lamp filtering through the tattered curtains. The bed was narrow, its springs creaking under my weight, and the furniture, a small desk and an empty chair in the corner, seemed to belong to a different era, their surfaces marked by the passage of time. At first, everything seemed fine. The silence of the room, a welcome reprieve after a long day of travel, the promise of a good night's sleep, a small comfort in this unfamiliar place. I unpacked my bag, the rustle of my clothes a soft sound in the stillness, and settled in, unaware of the darkness that lingered just beyond the edge of my perception, waiting for the night to reveal its secrets. Have you ever stepped into a place that feels alive with history, its quiet charm hiding a darkness you can't yet see, a whisper of the past that waits for the right moment to speak? That night, as I lay in the narrow bed, the springs creaking beneath me. I tried to drift into sleep, the weight of the day pulling me toward the edge of dreams. The room was dark, the only light a faint sliver of moonlight that slipped through the gap in the curtains, casting a pale glow across the peeling wallpaper, the shadows stretching long and thin like fingers reaching for the unknown. But just as I began to slip into the haze of sleep, a sound pulled me back. A faint whispering, soft and indistinct, coming from the corner of the room where the empty chair and small desk stood. My eyes snapped open, my heart lurching in my chest as I strained to listen. The sound so subtle I wondered if I'd imagined it. A trick of the old hotel's creaking bones or the wind outside. I sat up, my breath shallow, and reached for the bedside lamp. It switched cold under my fingers as I flicked it on. The dim yellow light flooding the room, banishing the shadows. But there was nothing. Just the chair, the desk, the same quiet furniture I'd seen when I checked in. Their surfaces untouched, their stillness a mockery of the unease that gripped me. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination, a product of exhaustion and the eerie atmosphere of the old hotel, and I turned off the light, plunging the room back into darkness as I settled beneath the covers, my eyes fixed on the ceiling, willing sleep to come. But the whispering started again, louder this time, a chilling chorus that seemed to rise from the very walls, the sound no longer a faint murmur but a clear, insistent voice that sent a shiver racing down my spine. I could make out words now. Leave. And not welcome. Their tone cold and commanding. A warning that echoed in the stillness. Each syllable a dagger that pierced the fragile calm I'd clung to. My heart raced. A frantic drumbeat that drowned out the silence. And I sat up, in bed, my eyes darting to the corner of the room. The source of the whispers now undeniable. And then I saw it. The chair, the same empty chair I'd checked moments before, moved slightly, its legs scraping against the wooden floor with a soft, deliberate sound, as if someone, or something, had pushed it, a silent presence making itself known in the dim moonlight. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the room itself was rejecting me, the whispers growing louder, their message clear. I was not wanted here. An intruder in a space that belonged to something else. Something that had been here long before I arrived. Can you imagine lying in bed, the darkness alive with whispers, a chair moving on its own, each sound a reminder that you're not alone, that something unseen wants you gone. Terror gripped me, a cold, unyielding force that wrapped around my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs as I stared at the chair. Its slight movement a silent scream in the stillness of the night. My hands trembled as I reached for the lamp again, fumbling with the switch until the room was flooded with light. The yellow glow a fragile shield against the darkness that had taken root in the corner. I turned on every light I could find, the bedside lamp, the overhead fixture, even the small bulb above the desk, desperate to banish the shadows, to drive away whatever had whispered those chilling words, whatever had moved that chair with an unseen hand. The room was bathed in light now, the peeling wallpaper stark under the harsh glow, the chair and desk standing as they always had, their stillness a cruel mockery of the fear that coursed through me. I sat on the edge of the bed, my knees pulled to my chest, my eyes darting around the room, searching for any sign of movement, any hint of the presence I'd felt so keenly moments before. My heart still raced, a frantic rhythm that refused to slow. Each beat a reminder of the terror that had jolted me awake, the whispers. Leave. Not welcome. Echoing in my mind like a haunting refrain. I stayed awake for hours. My body tense, my senses heightened. The silence now a heavy weight that pressed against me, each creak of the old hotel a potential threat. But nothing else happened that night. The room remaining still, the whispers silenced by the light, the chair unmoving in its corner, as if the presence had retreated, waiting for the darkness to return. I sat there until the first rays of dawn crept through the window, their pale light a promise of safety, a reprieve from the nightmare that had unfolded in the night. What would you do, alone in a room where the shadows whisper your expulsion, where the furniture moves with an unseen will, each moment a test of your courage against a fear you can't explain? The next morning, as the pale light of dawn filtered through the tattered curtains, I gathered my things with trembling hands, the events of the night still clinging to me like a cold fog, each whisper, each movement of that chair replaying in my mind with a clarity that made my stomach churn. I couldn't stay another moment in that room, the air still heavy with the weight of something I couldn't see, something that had made its presence known with chilling clarity. I checked out as quickly as I could, my bag slung over my shoulder. My steps hurried as I made my way to the lobby, the same dim space I'd found charming the day before, now feeling oppressive, its shadows hiding secrets I no longer wanted to uncover. I approached the front desk, my voice shaking as I told the staff about what had happened. The whispers in the corner, the words "leave" and "not welcome," the chair that had moved on its own, the terror that had kept me awake through the night. The woman behind the counter, an older employee with a weary expression, listened quietly, her face betraying no surprise, her eyes meeting mine with a knowing look that sent a fresh chill down my spine. She nodded slowly, as if my story was one she'd heard before, and then she spoke, her voice low and measured, each word a confirmation of the nightmare I'd lived through. "That room has a history," she said, her gaze flickering to the stairwell that led to the third floor. "Strange occurrences, whispers, things moving on their own. Some guests have even reported seeing a shadowy figure sitting in that chair, watching them as they slept." Her words hit me like a blow, the reality of what I'd experienced sinking in. The whispers and the moving chair no longer a product of my imagination, but a part of the hotel's dark legacy, a haunting that had driven others away before me. I felt a wave of nausea, the thought of that shadowy figure sitting in the chair, watching me as I lay unaware, making my skin crawl with a fear I couldn't shake. I thanked her, my voice barely a whisper, and left the hotel immediately. The creak of the front door behind me a final farewell to a place I knew I'd never return to, its secrets too dark, too real, for me to ever face again. Have you ever uncovered a truth so chilling that it confirms your worst fears? A haunting that lingers in your mind, a reminder of a night you'll never return to. It was a night I'll never forget. A night where the vast emptiness of the Atlantic Ocean revealed something, or someone, that didn't belong, something that still haunts my every voyage. I was 25 years old, a second officer on a heavy lift vessel, navigating the dark expanse of the Atlantic during a routine night shift. The date was a year ago, but the memory remains as sharp as the icy wind that blew across the deck that night. My watch ran from midnight to 4 a.m., a solitary stretch of time where the ship felt like a floating world, isolated from everything but the endless waves. To keep myself alert and ease the monotony, I'd taken to walking laps around the bridge console, my boots echoing softly against the metal floor, the hum of the ship's engines a steady heartbeat beneath me. The ocean stretched out in all directions, a black void that seemed to swallow the stars, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone out there, that something was watching from the depths. It was 1:30 a.m. when I first saw him, a figure moving along the starboard side of the deck, his silhouette faintly illuminated by the dim deck lights. At first I wasn't alarmed. Crew members were allowed to go outside whenever they pleased, though it was unusual for anyone to be out at this hour, especially in the biting cold of the Atlantic night. But as I continued my lap, a flicker of unease settled in my chest, a whisper of instinct that told me something wasn't right. I passed the bridge windows again, my gaze drawn to the spot where I'd seen him. And there he was, standing still now, between cargo hold number 1 and the windbreaker, his back to me, staring forward into the darkness. The sight of him, motionless against the restless sea, sent a shiver down my spine, a chill that had nothing to do with the wind. I stopped, my breath catching, and watched, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Then, as if he felt my gaze, he turned, his movement stiff and unnatural, and looked directly at me, raising a hand to wave, a gesture that felt more like a summons than a greeting. My heart jolted, a surge of adrenaline sharpening my senses, as I took in the details that didn't add up. He was wearing a white coverall, the kind officers might wear, but every coverall on this ship was red, adorned with silver reflective strips on the shoulders. Standard issue. Unmistakable. His helmet was orange, a color we had in limited supply, but the crew always wore white helmets, a uniformity I'd never seen broken. And then there was the impossibility of his gaze. How could he see me? The bridge lights were off, the windows, tinted and reflective, designed to shield us from the glare of the deck. From his position, I should have been invisible, a shadow behind glass, yet his eyes, or whatever passed for eyes, locked onto mine with an unwavering certainty. I grabbed my radio, my hands trembling slightly, and called out, my voice steady, despite the growing dread. "This is the bridge, who's on deck?" I waited, the static crackling in response, but there was no answer, just the sound of my own breathing, loud in the silence of the bridge. He kept waving, his arm moving in a mechanical rhythm, his head tilting to follow my movements as I paced, a predator tracking its prey. I tried the radio again, my voice sharper this time, but the static was my only reply, a hollow sound that seemed to mock my growing panic. I moved to the light console, my fingers fumbling over the switches, and flipped on the bridge spotlights, flooding the deck below with a harsh, blinding glow. The light should have revealed him, should have shown me the man I'd seen. But when I looked down, he was gone, vanished as if he'd never been there, leaving nothing but the empty deck and the relentless waves. My mind raced, grasping for explanations. Perhaps he'd ducked into the stairway leading to the paint store, or slipped into the passage to the forward station within the windbreaker. But deep down, I knew better. Something about his presence felt wrong, as if he didn't belong to this ship, to this world. I kept the lights on, my eyes scanning the deck for any sign of movement, my heart pounding as I waited, counting the minutes. 10, 20, 30. The deck remained empty, the ocean silent, but the feeling of being watched never left me, a weight that pressed against my chest until my shift ended at dawn. The next morning I questioned the crew, my voice casual but my nerves raw, asking if anyone had been on deck during my watch. Every answer was the same. They'd all been asleep, their voices groggy but honest. And I believed them, because who would brave the cold at 1:30 a.m. with no reason? I checked the ship's inventory. Our coveralls were red, every single one, and no one owned a white set. The orange helmet was a possibility, but the crew's white helmets were standard, and no one had requested a change. It didn't make sense. He couldn't have been one of us, couldn't have been real. Some of the guys laughed, suggesting it might have been a prank, but no one confessed. Not even months later when I pressed them, half hoping for a confession that would explain it all. I wanted to laugh with them, to believe I'd been fooled, but the memory of his stiff movements, the way he stared, the way he vanished under the lights, it was too real, too wrong to be a joke. I went back to the spot where I'd seen him, searching for any trace, any clue that could anchor this experience in reality. The stairway to the paint store was locked, as it always was at night, and the passage to the forward station showed no signs of use. No footprints, no disturbances, nothing. I've been at sea for 5 years, seen storms and accidents that tested my courage, but nothing has ever shaken me like that night. I saw him for a full 5 minutes, his figure clear in the dim light, his wave a haunting gesture, and he only disappeared when the spotlights burned away the shadows. I can't explain what I saw, can't reconcile it with the world I know, and the thought of that ghostly crewman, his unnatural presence, his impossible gaze, still lingers, a shadow on the edge of my mind that I can't escape. He was out there in the dark, trying to get in, and I felt his gaze before I saw his face. I live in a college student house in a bustling student housing sector near my university, sharing the space with a group of other girls, a place filled with laughter and late-night study sessions. But one night, that sense of safety shattered, leaving behind a fear that clings to me like a second skin. My roommate and I had fallen asleep on the living room couch, the TV glowing with a Netflix show we'd been binge-watching. The clock, ticking past 1 a.m. Have you ever woken to a sound that turns your blood to ice? A sound that shouldn't be there in the dead of night? We both jolted awake to the unmistakable sound of someone trying to pick the lock on the back door. A sharp, metallic scrape that cut through the silence like a knife. The sound was distinct, deliberate, a rhythmic scratching that left no doubt in our minds. It was someone trying to break in. My heart leapt into my throat, a frantic rhythm that drowned out the faint hum of the TV still playing in the background. My roommate froze, her body rigid with fear, her eyes wide as she stared at me, silently pleading for guidance. I forced myself to move, slipping off the couch as quietly as I could, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. Sensory overload. The air felt thick, the faint scent of popcorn and stale air from our movie night now sour with dread. The dim light of the TV casting eerie shadows on the walls, and my pulse roared in my ears, a storm I couldn't silence. I tiptoed to the window by the back door, my movements slow and cautious, trying to stay out of sight as I peered through a crack in the curtains. There he was, a man cloaked in darkness, his flashlight beam a cold, unfeeling eye piercing the night. He held the flashlight in one hand, its light trained on the lock, while the other hand wielded a small tool, maybe a screwdriver, working at the mechanism with a focused intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. He was dressed in a dark hoodie and pants, the hood pulled low, obscuring his face as he concentrated on the lock. My heart raced, a wild thing in my chest, but I forced myself to stay quiet, to keep watching, hoping he wouldn't notice me. I studied him for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably just a minute, his movements methodical, almost mechanical, as if he'd done this before. He didn't know I was there, or so I thought, until he looked up, and our eyes locked through the glass. Pattern interruption. That moment stopped time. His blank expression, his unblinking gaze, cut through me like a blade, stripping away every illusion of safety. I froze, a chill racing down my spine, my breath catching in my throat as I stared into eyes I couldn't see but felt with a primal certainty. Trance loop. He's going to get in. He's going to get in. He's going to get... My mind chanted a loop of terror I couldn't break. It felt like forever, though it was likely just seconds. His gaze boring into me, through me, as if he could see every fear I'd ever hidden. I couldn't look away, trapped in that moment of silent confrontation, my body trembling, my hands gripping the curtain so tightly my knuckles turned white. Then, as slowly as he'd appeared, he backed away, still holding the flashlight and tool, his eyes never leaving mine as he retreated into the darkness. He moved with a deliberate slowness, each step a silent promise that he could return, until the shadows swallowed him completely, leaving nothing but the echo of his presence. I stumbled back to the couch, my legs shaky, and found my roommate, still there, trembling, her face pale with fear. I whispered what I'd seen, my voice barely audible, the words tumbling out in a rush as I tried to make sense of the nightmare we'd just lived through. We grabbed the phone and called the police, our voices shaking as we explained what had happened, begging for help in the middle of the night. The police arrived, their flashlights cutting through the backyard, their voices calm but distant as they inspected the back door. They found scratch marks on the lock, faint scars of his attempt to break in, but they were little help beyond that. "He's gone now," they said, their tone matter of fact, "and you can't describe his face, so there's not much we can do." They advised us to keep the doors and windows locked, to call if anything else happened, a hollow comfort that did nothing to ease the terror still gripping us. We thanked them, but as they left, we felt more vulnerable than ever. The house, that had once been our sanctuary, now a fragile shell, easily breached by the darkness outside. From that night on, we became obsessive, double-checking every lock, every window, before daring to close our eyes, the fear of his return a constant weight on our shoulders. A few weeks later, I saw a news report that sent a fresh wave of dread through me. A man had broken into another house just a few streets away, in the same student housing area, slipping in while the residents slept, stealing their belongings before vanishing into the night. Nested storytelling. A friend once told me about a break-in in her dorm, where she woke to find her laptop gone, the window cracked open and a single footprint in the dust, a thief who was never caught. Now, as I watched the news, I felt that same helplessness. The sketch of the suspect flashed on the screen, and my blood ran cold. It was him, the same build, the same dark hoodie, a ghost from that night brought to life in ink and shadow. The report didn't say if they'd caught him, leaving us to wonder if he was still out there waiting for another chance. Anchoring. That moment, locking eyes with him through the window, anchored me in a fear I'll never escape, a memory that haunts every shadow I see. I'm just glad he didn't get in that night, that we woke up in time. But the thought of what could have happened, what did happen to others, still shakes me to my core. The house feels different now, a place where safety is an illusion, and I wonder if I'll ever feel truly secure again. I was alone in a hotel room last night, a routine stop on a trip that should have been forgettable. Before bed, I followed my usual ritual, a habit born from years of cautious nights. I checked every door, every window, ensuring the deadbolt was secure, the latches firm. The room felt safe, a small sanctuary with its generic beige walls, a stiff bed, and a single chair by the desk. I settled into bed, the soft glow of the bedside lamp casting a warm light as I scrolled through my phone, the hum of notifications a comforting distraction. After about half an hour, I flicked off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness, and curled up on the left side of the bed, my body tucked into a fetal position, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around myself. I closed my eyes, the silence of the room wrapping around me like a heavy blanket, lulling me toward sleep. I thought I was alone. I thought I was safe. Then I felt it. A faint sound broke the stillness, a subtle scrape, like the chair by the desk being nudged aside. My eyes snapped open, my heart giving a sharp jolt, but I couldn't see anything in the pitch black. The lights were off, the room a void, and I tried to calm myself, reasoning it must have come from the room next door. Thin walls, I told myself, a logical explanation for a sleepless mind. I lay there, straining to hear more, but the silence returned, heavier now, as if the room itself was holding its breath. I waited, my pulse slowing, convincing myself it was nothing, just a trick of the night. But the air felt different, charged with an unease I couldn't shake. After a few moments, I sensed movement, a presence undeniable, as if someone had entered the room. I heard the soft patter of bare feet on the carpet, deliberate steps that sent a chill racing down my spine. Then the bed shifted. A pressure, distinct and real, pressed against the mattress on my right as if someone had climbed in beside me, their weight sinking into the bed. My breath caught, my body tensing, every muscle screaming that this wasn't right. I told myself it was in my head. It had to be. Maybe the sound was from the room next door, echoing through the walls, playing tricks on my exhausted mind. But the feeling was too real, too close, the mattress dipping under an unseen force. I lay there, frozen, my mind a battlefield of fear and logic. I gathered every ounce of courage, preparing to turn, to lash out, to punch if someone was truly there. But at the same time, I clung to the hope that it was nothing, just another echo from the neighboring room. My heart pounded, a frantic rhythm that filled the silence, my body trembling with the effort of deciding. Before I could act, it grabbed me. Hands, cold and unyielding, seized me from behind, wrapping around my torso in a grip so tight I couldn't breathe. I felt the weight of a body pressing against my back, the distinct pressure of arms, legs, a torso. Male, I could sense it, though I couldn't see. I tried to turn, to twist my neck to see who or what had me, but my head wouldn't move, locked in place by an invisible force. Panic surged, raw and primal, as I opened my mouth to scream, to demand, "Who are you?" But no sound came, only a ragged breath escaping my lips. I heard breathing, steady and close, right by my ear. A sound that sent shivers through me, amplifying my terror. I fought with everything I had, my body straining against the hold, my mind racing with images of a dark, demonic face looming behind me, its features twisted, inhuman. I whispered a prayer, calling on any higher power to save me, to free me from this nightmare. After what felt like an eternity, though it was mere seconds, the grip released. My neck loosened, the pressure vanished, and I felt free, as if whatever held me had melted into the darkness. I turned my head, my breath coming in gasps, but there was nothing. The room was empty, the mattress undisturbed, the darkness unbroken. I lunged for the lamp, my hands shaking as I flicked it on, the light flooding the space, revealing nothing but the mundane. A chair, a desk, a bed, all as I'd left them. My heart still raced, my body trembling as I grabbed my phone and searched for answers. Desperate to understand what I'd felt, I found stories, countless others who'd experienced the same. A feeling of presence, they called it. A phenomenon where the mind conjures a sense of someone there, someone watching. But this wasn't just a feeling. I'd felt the touch, the weight, the reality of it. I couldn't sleep, my nerves buzzing as if I'd downed a dozen cups of coffee. My mind replaying the sensation of those hands, that breathing, the certainty of a demonic presence I couldn't see. I prayed again, my voice a whisper, begging for protection, for peace. Hours later, exhaustion finally claimed me, and I slept. the light still on, a fragile shield against the dark. The next morning, I went for a walk, the cool air a stark contrast to the stifling terror of the night. I couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't shake the fear that it would happen again, that whatever it was would return. I called my girlfriend, my voice unsteady as I asked her to stay on the line with me that night, to talk until dawn, a lifeline to keep the darkness at bay. Thankfully, nothing happened. The night passing in quiet safety, her voice a comfort through the hours. But the memory lingers, a shadow that clings to me, a reminder of that hotel room where something unseen crossed a line I can't unfeel. I never want to feel that grip again, but I fear it's still out there, waiting. I lay in the darkness of my hotel room, the air heavy with an unseen presence, when I felt it climb onto my bed, its cold grip wrapping around me, whispering that I'd never escape. It was a night that turned my understanding of reality upside down, a chilling encounter in a place meant for rest, a memory that still sends shivers down my spine. I was traveling alone, staying in a modest hotel in a city I barely knew, a temporary refuge after a long day on the road. Feel that unease now, the kind that settles into your bones when you're far from home, in a place where every sound feels like a threat. The experience I had that night, the terror of feeling something or someone invade my space, left me shaken, desperate for comfort, and forever changed by the unknown. It was late, the clock on the nightstand glowing a faint red, its numbers ticking past midnight as I prepared for bed. I'd always been cautious when staying in hotels, a habit born from too many nights in unfamiliar places, too many stories of things going wrong. Before settling in, I made my rounds, checking the windows to ensure they were locked tight, their latches firm against the cool glass, the curtains drawn to block out the neon glow of the city outside. Picture it. A small hotel room, the walls a muted beige, the air thick with the scent of stale carpet and cleaning solution, the faint hum of the air conditioning a constant drone. The door was next, its deadbolt sliding into place with a reassuring thud, the chain rattling as I secured it. A flimsy barrier between me and whatever might lurk beyond. I felt safe, or as safe as one can in a strange place, and I climbed into bed, the sheets cool against my skin, the mattress firm beneath me. I played on my phone for a while, scrolling through messages and emails, the soft light of the screen casting shadows across the ceiling, a distraction from the quiet that pressed in around me. After about half an hour, I set my phone down, the screen going dark as I reached over to turn off the bedside lamp, plunging the room into darkness. I rolled onto my side, curling into a fetal position, my knees drawn up, my arms tucked close, a position that had always felt comforting, safe. The air was still, the only sound the faint hum of the city outside, muffled by the thick walls of the hotel. I closed my eyes, willing sleep to come, my mind drifting toward the edge of dreams. That's when I heard it, a soft scraping sound like a chair being pushed aside. The noise sharp and distinct in the silence, as if someone, or something, had moved it just inches from my bed. Feel that jolt now, the kind that snaps you awake, your heart pounding, as you realize you're not alone. I froze, my eyes snapping open, my breath catching in my throat as I strained to hear the sound again, to convince myself it was just the room settling, just a trick of my tired mind. But the noise had come from within the room, not from the neighboring one, and the lights were off. I couldn't see anything, couldn't confirm what I'd heard. I lay there, my body tense, my mind racing as I tried to rationalize it, to tell myself it was nothing, that I was alone, that I'd locked the door, secured the windows. But the feeling wouldn't leave me, a creeping dread that settled into my bones, whispering that I wasn't safe, that something was here with me. And then I felt it. A presence. A weight that seemed to fill the room, heavy and oppressive, as if the air itself had thickened, pressing against my chest. Imagine that, feeling something you can't see, something that doesn't belong, its presence a violation of everything you thought you knew. I heard the soft patter of bare feet against the carpet, a sound so faint I might have missed it if I hadn't been listening, followed by a dip in the mattress as if someone had climbed onto the bed beside me, their weight shifting the springs beneath me. My heart raced, a frantic rhythm that echoed in my ears, my breath coming in shallow gasps as I felt it move closer, its presence a cold, heavy weight that seemed to wrap around me. I felt hands on me, cold and firm, gripping me from behind. There, touch icy against my skin, sending a shiver racing down my spine. Feet pressed against my legs, a body molding itself to mine, its weight pinning me in place, its grip tightening until I could barely breathe. Feel that terror now, the kind that makes your blood run cold, your body scream to fight, to flee, but you can't move, can't escape. I tried to turn, to see what or who was holding me, but my neck wouldn't move, my body paralyzed by fear, by the sheer wrongness of what was happening. I screamed, or tried to, my voice a desperate plea as I demanded to know who it was, what it wanted, but no sound came out, just a faint whisper of air that disappeared into the darkness. I could hear breathing, slow and deliberate, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, filling the room with a presence that made my skin crawl, my heart pound with a fear I'd never known. I fought against it, my body trembling, as I summoned every ounce of strength I had, my mind screaming for release, for this nightmare to end. I called on every prayer I knew, whispering the name of God under my breath, a desperate plea for protection, for salvation. Imagine that struggle, feeling something hold you, something you can't see, can't fight, its grip a reminder of your own helplessness. After what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only moments, I felt my neck loosen, the grip on me weakening, and then it was gone. The presence, the weight, the coldness, all of it vanishing as if it had never been. There. I turned my head, my breath coming in ragged gasps, but there was nothing. Just the empty darkness of the room, the faint glow of the clock on the nightstand, its red numbers mocking my fear. I scrambled to turn on the lamp, my hands shaking. As I fumbled with the switch, the light flooding the room, banishing the shadows but not the terror that lingered in my chest. I sat up, my body trembling, my mind racing as I tried to make sense of what had happened, what I'd felt. It had been so real. The hands, the feet, the body pressing against me, the breathing that had filled the room with its menacing presence. Feel that confusion now, the kind that makes you question your own reality, knowing you felt something, but the world tells you it wasn't there. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I searched online, desperate for answers, for confirmation, that I wasn't alone, that others had felt this too. I found it, a phenomenon called the feeling of presence, a known experience, a trick of the mind, but knowing that didn't erase the fear, didn't make it any less real. I saw her in my mind, a shadowy figure with a dark, demonic face, a vision that made my blood run cold, a nightmare I couldn't shake. I couldn't sleep, my body buzzing with adrenaline, my mind racing as if I'd had 10 cups of coffee, the terror keeping me awake, alert, afraid to close my eyes. I paced the room, my bare feet cold against the carpet, my eyes darting to the door, to the windows, waiting for her to return, for the nightmare to continue. Finally, I grabbed my phone again, my hands still trembling as I dialed my girlfriend. My voice shaky as I asked her to stay on the line with me until morning, to talk to me, to keep me company through the long, dark hours. Imagine that desperation, needing someone to anchor you, to remind you that you're not alone, that the darkness can't have you. She agreed, her voice a lifeline in the night, and we talked until the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, banishing the shadows, the fear. Nothing happened that night. No more sounds, no more presences. But the memory of that encounter, the feeling of being held by something I couldn't see, has stayed with me. A terror I never want to experience again. I stood frozen on a moonless night in Germany, watching a small UFO land in my backyard, its orange light glowing like a predator's eye, whispering that I wasn't alone on this earth. It was one of many strange encounters I experienced while living in Germany, a series of events that left me questioning reality, haunted by the unknown. I'd moved there for work, expecting a quiet life in a new country, but what I found was a world of mystery, of UFOs, ghostly figures and beings that defied explanation. Feel that wonder now, the kind that turns to terror when you realize the universe is far bigger, far stranger than you ever imagined. These experiences, each more unsettling than the last, have stayed with me. A collection of nightmares I can't escape. A reminder that some things are beyond our understanding. The first incident happened late one night. The sky a deep, starless, black. The air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. I was in my small apartment in a quiet German town, the kind of place where the streets were silent after dark, the only sound the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. I'd gone to bed early, the room dark save for the faint glow of a street lamp filtering through the curtains, the air cool against my skin as I lay beneath a thin blanket. Picture it, a modest apartment, the walls a faded gray, the air heavy, with the stillness of the night, a place where nothing should happen. I was drifting towards sleep, my mind hovering on the edge of dreams when I felt it. A sudden, paralyzing weight that pinned me to the bed, my body frozen, my limbs heavy as if bound by invisible chains. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My breath shallow as I strained against the force holding me down, my heart pounding with a fear I couldn't name. That's when I saw it. Through the window, a small disc-shaped object descended from the sky, its surface smooth and metallic, glinting faintly in the darkness as it landed in my backyard with an eerie silence. A bright orange light pulsed from its center, casting a warm, unnatural glow across the grass, its rhythm steady, hypnotic, like the heartbeat of something alive. Feel that terror now, the kind that grips your chest when you see something that shouldn't exist, something that defies everything you know. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was trapped, my body still paralyzed, my eyes locked on the UFO as it sat there, a silent intruder in the night. After what felt like an eternity, though it was probably only moments, the light faded, the craft vanishing as if it had never been there, and the paralysis lifted, leaving me trembling, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I tried to make sense of what I'd seen. The encounters didn't stop there. Few months later, I was awake late, the clock ticking past midnight, the room bathed in the soft glow of a lamp as I read a book, the air thick with the scent of old pages and coffee. I glanced at the window, the glass reflecting the warm light of the room when I saw her, a woman in white standing just outside, her pale face framed by long dark hair, her eyes empty, hollow, staring straight at me. Imagine that, seeing a figure where none should be, her gaze a silent accusation, her presence a violation of the night. I froze, my book slipping from my hands, my heart racing as I watched her, unable to look away. She stood there, unblinking, her white dress glowing faintly in the darkness, and then she vanished, her form dissolving into the night. A moment later, a piercing scream echoed through the air, sharp and anguished, as if she'd been torn from this world, leaving me with nothing but the echo of her voice and the chill of her gaze. The experiences grew stranger, more surreal. Saw a triangular UFO in the sky one evening, its edges sharp and black, 3 white lights pulsing at each corner, moving with a precision that no human craft could match. It hovered silently above the town, its presence a quiet threat, a reminder of how small we are in the vastness of the universe. But the most terrifying encounter came one night in my backyard, the same place where I'd seen the small UFO land. I was standing on the grass, the air cool against my skin, the sky a deep indigo streaked with stars, when I saw it, a gray alien, its skin smooth and ashen, its large black eyes glinting in the moonlight, its body short and slender, moving with an unnatural grace. Feel that primal fear now, the kind that makes your blood run cold, knowing you're face to face with something not of this world. It stood there, watching me, its gaze piercing, unblinking, and I felt a strange pull, a compulsion to approach, due to reach out. I stayed a bit longer, my feet rooted to the ground, my heart pounding, until I finally turned and fled, the memory of its eyes haunting me long after I'd locked the door behind me. These experiences have left me reeling, my mind a tangle of confusion and fear, unable to make sense of what I've seen, what I've felt. I've tried to explain them, to find some rational answer, but nothing fits. Nothing makes sense. Imagine living with that, knowing you've seen things you can't explain, things that leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. I'm at a loss for words, a loss for understanding. My time in Germany, a chapter of my life marked by the unknown, by the terror of the unexplained, a mystery I may never solve.